Now, please welcome CEO of Ocado Solutions, Luke Jensen, interviewed by co-founder and Chief Content Officer of Groceryshop, Zia Daniell Wigder.
I was hoping the music would be a bit louder. That was Changes, Barry, and listening to Zia, it's just crazy the amount of change that is happening in this industry. I think it's unthinkable that you would have been here in the grocery industry and faced that amount of change in any time in the last few decades. I'm going to share a few thoughts with you, and then Zia will come back on stage and we'll have a chat together. You may be asking yourself, the title to this presentation, Cracking the Big Challenges of Grocery, why is a guy from online talking about cracking the big challenges of grocery? Well, we're more than a channel. Let me reassure you, you are in the right place. And the reason for this is that I'm going to share with you today some of the lessons we've learned about how Ocado has been able to use science and technology not just to build winning online businesses for us and our partners, but actually also to address some of the biggest challenges in grocery. For those who are not familiar with Ocado, I'll just give a quick 2-minute little introduction to Ocado. So Ocado was started 19 years ago as a pure-play grocery retailer in the UK. The UK retail business turns over close to $2 billion, and has demonstrated, which is very, very important, that grocery online can be profitable and is profitable the way we execute it. We also consistently outperform our competitors. The data on the chart here is the quarterly outperformance of Ocado versus the UK online average, and that UK online average includes Tesco, includes Asda Walmart, includes Sainsbury's, all businesses that have multi-billion online businesses. And on the strength of that success, we have transformed the business to become a technology partner for some of the best grocers around the world. Notably, of course, Kroger in the US, where we just last Friday announced the latest location of one of our automated fulfillment centers with them in Dallas. This success has been achieved on the strength of the unique technologies that we've developed. Neither did the software nor the hardware exist to address the challenges and opportunities of grocery online, so we developed them. And on this slide you see a little bit of that. Up there is the warehouse automation that we run in our warehouses that allows us to assemble 50-item orders in less than 6 minutes. We created our own proprietary routing, or should I say routing, when in America, systems that are up there. That's the UK ping away with Ocado deliveries on a daily basis. And also in the web shop, we invented not just hundreds, but literally thousands of ways of creating an experience of commerce that is really suited to grocery. And all of this is connected together by Ocado's own AI and machine learning capabilities. But what I want to talk about for the next few minutes, I'll be quick, is how that journey of creating our own business has led us to help address some of the big challenges of grocery. Let's start with food waste. Food waste to grocery, I don't know how much of you follow British politics, but to me it's a bit like Brexit in the UK. It's the only topic we can ever talk about, but nobody ever seems to come up with a solution. And it's a big problem. 1.3 billion tons of food wasted globally every year. In the US, it's estimated, and this number was confirmed in a panel I was listening to earlier on, that up to 40% of food is lost or wasted every year. One US grocer actually recently went on record to say for every $1.2 million of sales, they have to discard more than 5 tons of food. So this is an enormous social and environmental issue. It's also a big profitability issue for the grocery industry. As a percentage of sale, net bottom line impact, waste for grocers cost 2.5% to 3%. Now, a lot of grocers around the world only make 2.5% to 3% of profit. So this is the equivalent of 100% of profits that's going to waste. Ocado, by contrast, and this is public numbers, audited, we're a listed company on the record, has managed to reduce weight to 0.7%. How did we do it? A lot of science and technology. Our proprietary systems, using artificial intelligence and machine learning, recalculate our supply chain forecasts 20 million times a day. And 20 million, that is a lot of calculation. And these forecasts achieve uniquely high levels of accuracy because, unlike most forecasts in supply chain that are top-down, these are actually bottom-up models that are using predictive models based on the actual shopping behavior of individual customers. And this is key because waste, a lot of people think of how do we not throw it away at the end of the process, but actually the key part that grocers can play is how do you buy the right stuff in the right quantities in the first place to avoid this. Now, these forecasting systems then combined with our warehouse technologies that allow us to carry less inventory across our whole supply chain. So end to end, from the suppliers to literally the kitchen of our customers, because we deliver to them, we carry just 7 days of inventory in total. And very importantly, we managed an absolutely perfect FIFO system, first in, first out on all inventory. So you know how in supermarkets, when you go into a supermarket, on the same shelf, you're going to find different products with different sell-by dates. And we've all done it. You go in and you reach the back of the shelf and you get the product that has 2 extra days on it. Now, that, of course, is very generative of waste for supermarkets, but also when you come to online businesses, it's even worse, because if you have pickers in the store, they don't even know what dates they're picking. So not only is this key to profitability, but actually it also has an enormous impact on the customer experience. The screenshots you see up in the top left-hand side of the screen for you are screenshots of our web shop. Every time we present a fresh product on our web shop, it always comes with a number of days that are going to be available of life in the home of the customers. Now, this is absolutely critical for waste, and our customers love this, because there's nothing worse when you buy online than seeing products turn up and you are planning on using them in 2 days' time, and the use-by date is tomorrow's date. Because of the systems I described, we managed to present products to people knowing how much data is going to be available to them, and they absolutely love it. And we're pushing the boundaries. These images on this side is vertical farming. We've invested recently in vertical farming, and again, you can imagine a future where vertical farms will be co-located with fulfillment centers, and you'll manage to create super fresh product. And this is an area where customers, consumers, expect the retail industry to do its bit. And right now, it's not yet doing its bit. In the US, 22% of total landfill is food. By contrast, Ocado now in the UK and its retail business is sending virtually nothing to landfill. And this is a change that we can all make happen. It's not specific to Ocado. Let me move to another big challenge: employment and talent. Now, the press spend a lot of time highlighting job losses, but actually, we in our industries know that we face quite a different challenge. Aging populations that mean that there are less people in employment age relative to the number of consumers, people who need to be fed. Increasing competition for talent. Rising employment costs. This is the US data. This is unemployment in the US versus employment costs. So we need to seek solutions to run our businesses, grocery businesses in general, with fewer, higher value-added jobs, and to make the retail sector a more attractive employment center. Now, this is an Ocado warehouse and a traditional warehouse, and a lot of people focus on robots versus human jobs. The reality is, that's not what this is about. This is about creating value-added jobs that people are going to want to do for the future, and where they're going to really be able to make a contribution to our businesses and to society. And as we roll out our partnerships, we'll be training hundreds of qualified engineers across the US, and we'll continue to add to the 2,000 developers that we already employ. The photo on this side is not an Ocado coder writing super sophisticated code. That's a kid in school. And the reason why I put that photo up is that we're a key participant in a program called Code for Life, which gives kids in schools the opportunity to experience and develop coding skills. And this is proving highly impactful, particularly in one area which is great, which is exposing girls who are generally less attracted to technology and to the sector to coding, playing around coding. We're already seeing that the kids who have been through the program are leading to more diverse applications of people going into the industry. So online, beyond what it is a channel, can actually play a role in making the grocery sector more exciting as a sector of employment that can attract the best talent. Let me quickly turn to e-commerce itself and what it takes to win in e-commerce. These are the 4 big pain points for consumers in e-commerce: missing products, substitutions, out-of-date products with poor life, and late deliveries. Now, let me tell you one critical truth, that the in-store fulfillment model, so picking orders in stores, which is the prevailing model in the industry today to serve grocery e-commerce orders, cannot solve these problems. When you pick in store, you're dependent on the stock that's available in store, and we all know that it's potluck as to what you're going to find on the shelf. It cannot address these things, and that's why Ocado created the fulfillment center model, and that we continue to invest in it, and that we're rolling that model out with Kroger, with Sobeys, with Coles in Australia, with ICA in Sweden, and others around the world. And we keep on innovating. This year, we launched in London a service called Zoom. It's a service that delivers groceries in 30 minutes in dense urban areas from a micro-fulfillment center. And by bringing Ocado's 19 years of knowledge, investment, technology to that sector, Zoom is already achieving better performance levels than any other solutions available in the immediacy market. So we see a future for us and our partners of developing networks of larger and smaller FCs, fulfillment centers, to achieve not just optimum economics, but also fantastic service levels across all types of shopping missions, going from the planned big shop to the last-minute top-up. So before Zia comes back and we turn to a couple of questions, I just want to leave you with one final thought. Don't think of e-commerce as a channel. Don't think of e-commerce as a tough nut you need to crack. Don't even think of e-commerce as an exciting source of growth. Think of e-commerce and digital as a catalyst through which you can transform grocery for the better, through which you can address issues like waste, like employment, make it a more exciting, more efficient sector, and ultimately deliver better customer experience all around. Thank you very much for listening. We're now going to get Zia back and have some questions.
All right. Thank you, Luke. So toward the end, you touched on innovation at Ocado a bit, and you're in a slightly different category than I think a lot of people think about innovation in terms of. So there's sort of the recently founded venture-based startups, there are the older traditional companies. You guys are somewhere in between those two. So how do you think about innovation as an organization? How do you structure teams? What does that look like at Ocado?
Well, I think Ocado was founded on a DNA of innovation. So everything was always built to say, we don't have any vested interests. Let's just look at the very best ways of cracking a problem. And that led to a culture that meant that we were always questioning things. And the organization is geared to always question things. The big step we've taken in the last 2-3 years is, of course, now we've got these partnerships around the world. And so we've created an ecosystem of innovation, an ecosystem of challenge, which is super exciting because not only are we coming up with ideas within Ocado, but actually Kroger is going to say, actually, I want to look at this, I want to try that. Coles is going to say, I want to try this, look at that. And we're basically, how to put it, we're both, the army and the orchestrator of this club of ideas that we're now trying to marshal to create innovation. And I think that'll create just a fantastic innovation machine on a scale and of a nature which is not purely internal, but actually also bringing together a bunch of external partners.
Okay. And you mentioned Kroger. You're about a year into that partnership at this point. Can you sort of talk about how it's going? Or
well, it's going great, I must say. It's crazy to think when you say just a year, because it's true that it's just over a year, that so much has happened over that period. We've got this big rollout program of fulfillment centers to build a network across the US, including both areas like Cincinnati, which is core Kroger, high market share presence, but also areas like Florida, where Kroger is not really present. So it's really creating a national network. But mainly what's very exciting with the relationship with Kroger is one of the things that came up a lot when we were doing the deal is we talked about being all in on both sides. And it's very different from the relationships that you would usually have between a retailer and a provider of technology or services. It is really about how can we bring the best of both organizations to innovate, to challenge ourselves, to look beyond what we were doing. And on both sides, we're just learning tremendously. We learn every day, they learn every day, and it's a great partnership with, at the core of it, Kroger's ambition to be the leading player in grocery online in the US.
And you have partnerships in a large number of other countries, Australia, France, Canada, Sweden, I think, a handful of others. How does each of these look different? You talked about sort of the iterative process of working with Kroger. How does that one, for example, compare to others around the world? Do they look very similar, or is it a completely different partnership by country?
Well, what's very interesting is that, yeah, you're dealing with different languages, different cultures, but ultimately, the DNA of grocery is very common around the world. As a grocer, and I was also a brick and mortar grocer before. I worked for Sainsbury's, which is one of the major players in the UK. And that experience, what we're all trying to do around the world, has a lot of commonality. And therefore, there's a lot of shared experience. At the same time, they're quirks, and each market has developed in a slightly different way. And depending on who's tried what is created different opportunities to serve the consumer in different ways. And I think that's the most exciting bit, is that online grocery is an area where consumers are begging for it, because actually as soon as good service is out there, bang, the markets take off. But actually they've taken off in slightly different ways in different places. And it's very interesting to see that across our different partners.
And coming from the UK, the market that's almost always pointed to as being the harbinger of things to come for us when it comes to grocery e-commerce, how do you as Ocado stay ahead in such a competitive market? What are the things that you feel like you need to do in order to survive?
Well, a lot of innovation. Great service. One of the things that it's interesting, because Ocado keeps on winning prizes for great service. And quite often people ask me, particularly our partners now that we've signed these various deals, they say, okay, well, what is it? Tell us all about the training that you do for your drivers who deliver the groceries into people's homes, because surely there must be some magic sauce in this training that means that everybody loves their Ocado driver. Now, what's interesting is I actually looked at it, and the conclusion was that our training is not very different from Tesco or Sainsbury's training. But what happens is that we have put great technology at the service of our associates who are making those deliveries. So when you turn up at a customer and you're presenting them an order which in most cases is exactly what they ordered, you're going to have a good interaction with that customer. Most of our competitors, the driver's turning up and they're having to explain, sorry, ma'am, you're missing this, we changed it for that, you know, this is that. And then they have to say, and sorry, I'm half an hour late. So our guys, we managed to equip with the ability to be comfortable so that when they turn up, they're on time, they've got the right order, and suddenly it becomes a great experience. So, you know, that's one big factor. The other big factor is that, think of the market as two competing models largely in the UK, like in a lot of other markets. You know, you've got the major grocers who are mostly fulfilling from store, and we're fulfilling from fulfillment centers. And I quote the Rolling Stones at this point, which is, time is on my side. Basically, as the market grows, the in-store fulfill model becomes more and more difficult to prosecute, because actually, you know, when 10% of your volume's out of a store online, you've got a problem, because you've got your personal shoppers running around the floor, it becomes very messy, you're depleting the stock, it's horrible. Whereas conversely, when you're in a fulfillment center model, the more you grow the business, the better your economics, the better the performance. So I think it's a combination of those two factors, great technology supporting great service and underlying economics that favor growth.
Okay. And last question for you. Coming from the UK, again, we often hear that what happened there can't necessarily happen here, certainly not at the same pace, that the population density in the UK is so different, and that it's just grocery has taken off online there in a way that, as I said, will take us quite a while. Do you see that being the case, or do you see there being sort of a similar opportunity here in terms of the percentage of sales that are done online?
Interesting. So watch this space, okay? So here we go. Yeah, if you roll back a few years, even 3 years ago, we would have been sitting in this room. The US was still at sort of super base levels. Yeah. In the last 12, 18 months, it has really started taking off. There's nothing, in terms of structure, population density, actually 70% of the US population lives in relatively dense areas. So if you compare it with the structure of the UK, fine. You could argue that out of the whole population of the US, there may be 30% that will be slightly more difficult to reach. There's 70% that will be exactly the same. Today, online penetration in the UK is, depending on the estimate, somewhere between 8 and 9% of the total grocery market. In the US, it's probably gone to 2 or 2 and a bit. Yeah, there is plenty to go. And our lesson from around the world, and I spend my whole life on planes, unfortunately for me, is that it's very supply-driven. When supply is good, when you can deliver great service at a good value to the customer, where it's competitive on price with what you can buy in store, and the delivery is not overly expensive to get to your home, then the market really takes off. And we're anticipating that in the US.
Okay, fantastic. I'm afraid we're out of time. So, Luke, thank you so much. Really appreciate your being here.
Been a pleasure. Thank you very much.